In the bustling heart of New York City, nestled between towering skyscrapers and luxury brands, there was a boutique that stood out for its exclusivity. Its name whispered with reverence among the elite, Veronica's Luxe Emporium. The shop was owned by Veronica Hartman, a woman known as much for her sharp tongue as for her impeccable taste in fashion. Her boutique catered to the crème de la crème of society, celebrities, politicians, socialites, and anyone who could afford the staggering price tags attached to her designer collections. Veronica prided herself on curating an atmosphere of sophistication and refinement. She believed her store was more than just a place to shop. It was an experience reserved for those who appreciated the finer things in life. But this exclusivity came at a cost. Over time, Veronica had developed a reputation for being dismissive toward anyone who didn't fit her idea of worthy. To her, it wasn't enough to simply have money. One needed to exude class, elegance, and an air of entitlement. One sunny afternoon, as sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the boutique, Veronica was adjusting a display of diamond-studded handbags worth tens of thousands of dollars. Her assistant hovered nearby, ensuring everything was perfect. The store was quiet, save for the soft hum of classical music playing in the background. It was then that the door chimed, softly signaling the arrival of a new customer. Veronica glanced up briefly, her practiced smile faltering almost instantly. Walking into the store was a woman dressed casually in jeans, sneakers, and a simple blouse. Her hair was pulled back into a loose ponytail, and she carried no visible signs of wealth or status. To Veronica, she looked like any other tourist, wandering aimlessly through Manhattan, gawking at items they couldn't possibly afford. Without hesitation, Veronica approached the woman with a cold, calculated demeanor. "If you're not planning to buy anything," she said curtly, her voice dripping with disdain, "please don't waste our time." The woman paused, taken aback by the sudden hostility. For a moment, she simply stared at Veronica, her expression unreadable. Then, without saying a word, she nodded politely and continued browsing. Ignoring Veronica's comment, she moved toward a rack of scarves displayed near the entrance. Picking one up, she examined it closely, running her fingers over the fabric as if appreciating its texture. Veronica bristled at the audacity of this stranger. How dare she ignore her warning? Who did she think she was, touching merchandise meant for people far above her station? Determined to put the woman in her place, Veronica stormed over and planted herself firmly beside her. "This is a high-end establishment," Veronica hissed, her voice low but venomous. "If you can't appreciate quality, perhaps you should leave." The room fell silent. Customers and staff alike turned to watch the confrontation unfold. Some looked uncomfortable, while others seemed entertained by the drama. But the woman remained unfazed. Instead of reacting with anger or embarrassment, she smiled, a warm, genuine smile that disarmed everyone in the room. "You're right," she said calmly, meeting Veronica's icy glare with steady eyes. "I might not belong here, but maybe kindness costs less than couture." With that, she placed the scarf back on the rack and walked out of the store, leaving behind a stunned audience and a seething Veronica. At first, Veronica dismissed the encounter as insignificant. After all, what harm could one rude customer do? She returned to arranging her displays, convincing herself that the woman would soon be forgotten. But little did Veronica know, this seemingly ordinary visitor was none other than Michelle Obama, former First Lady of the United States. Unbeknownst to Veronica, another shopper in the store had snapped a few photos of Michelle during the incident. Within hours, these images began circulating online, sparking outrage across social media platforms. People were quick to rally behind Michelle, praising her grace under pressure and condemning Veronica's behavior as elitist and disrespectful. As the story gained traction, hashtags like Endure Kindness over Couture and Michelle for President trended worldwide. Memes mocking Veronica's attitude flooded Twitter, while Instagram users shared heartfelt posts about the importance of treating others with respect, regardless of their appearance or background. For Veronica, however, the worst was yet to come. What started as a minor blip on her radar quickly escalated into a full-blown scandal, Friends and colleagues distanced themselves, fearing association with her toxic attitude. Regular customers stopped visiting her boutique, and negative reviews poured in from all corners of the internet. Despite her initial confidence that the backlash would blow over, Veronica soon realized she had underestimated the power of public opinion and the influence of someone like Michelle Obama. As days passed, the weight of her actions began to sink in. For the first time in years, Veronica found herself questioning not only her business practices, but also the person she had become. Was she truly proud of the way she treated others? Had her obsession with exclusivity blinded her to the value of basic human decency? These questions gnawed at her, keeping her awake at night. Yet even as guilt consumed her, Veronica couldn't shake the memory of Michelle's parting words. Maybe kindness costs less than couture. They echoed in her mind, a gentle yet piercing reminder of the lesson she had failed to learn that day. Little did Veronica know, this incident was just the beginning of a journey that would force her to confront her flaws, redefine her priorities, and ultimately seek redemption in ways she never imagined possible. The moment Michelle Obama walked out of Veronica's boutique, she left behind more than just a lingering sense of awkwardness. She left behind a story that would soon explode into a global phenomenon. Unbeknownst to Veronica, another shopper in the store had discreetly captured photos of the encounter on their phone. These images, showing Michelle calmly browsing scarves while Veronica glared at her with obvious disdain, were uploaded to social media within hours. At first, the post gained little traction. It was just another anecdote about poor customer service buried beneath countless memes and viral videos. But then something extraordinary happened. Someone recognized Michelle in the photos. Comments began flooding in, speculating whether the woman in the pictures was indeed the former First Lady of the United States. Before long, the post went viral, spreading like wildfire across platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. People were outraged, not because of what Michelle had done, but because of how she had been treated. "This is Michelle Obama we're talking about," one commenter wrote. "She could buy your entire store and still have change left over." Others chimed in, sharing stories of their own encounters with snobbish shopkeepers or elitist establishments. The hashtag #kindness over couture quickly gained momentum, becoming a rallying cry for those who believed in treating everyone with respect, regardless of appearances. Veronica, meanwhile, remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing online. That evening, as she sipped a glass of red wine in her penthouse apartment overlooking Manhattan, she scrolled idly through her phone. At first, she noticed nothing unusual. A few notifications here and there, nothing out of the ordinary. But as she delved deeper into her social media feeds, her stomach dropped. There it was, photo after photo of Michelle Obama inside her boutique, accompanied by captions mocking her behavior. Memes featuring her sneering face went viral, with captions like, "When you judge a book by its cover," and "Oops, wrong woman to mess with." One particularly scathing tweet read, "Imagine being so arrogant that you insult Michelle Obama." Like, really? Veronica's hands trembled as she scrolled through the endless stream of criticism. Her boutique's Instagram page, once filled with glowing reviews and glamorous photos, was now inundated with angry comments. Customers who had previously praised her taste and style were now calling her rude, classist, and disrespectful. Some even threatened to boycott her store altogether. Panic set in as Veronica realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just a minor PR hiccup. It was a full-blown crisis. Overnight, her carefully cultivated image as a tastemaker and trendsetter had been shattered. In its place stood a caricature of arrogance and elitism, a reputation she feared might never recover. Desperate to salvage what remained of her business, Veronica called an emergency meeting with her staff the next morning. The atmosphere in the boutique was tense, with employees exchanging nervous glances as they prepared for the day ahead. When Veronica arrived, her usual air of confidence was noticeably absent. Instead, she looked haggard, her eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. "I don't need to tell you what's going on," she began, addressing the room in a shaky voice. "You've all seen the posts. You know the damage this is doing to our brand. We need to act fast if we want to survive this." Her assistant, a young woman named Claire, raised her hand hesitantly. "What do you suggest we do?" she asked. Veronica hesitated, unsure of how to respond. She had always prided herself on being in control, but now she felt completely powerless. "I'll hire a PR team," she said finally. "They'll help us manage the fallout. Until then, I need everyone to stay professional. No matter what happens, we cannot let this affect our work." But even as she spoke, Veronica knew her words rang hollow. The truth was, no amount of spin or damage control could erase the fact that she had publicly humiliated one of the most beloved figures in modern history. And as the days passed, the backlash only grew worse. Local news outlets picked up the story, running segments about the incident during primetime broadcasts. Headlines like "Luxury Shop Owner Learns Hard Lesson After Insulting Michelle Obama" dominated newspapers and websites. Talk show hosts joked about Veronica's misstep, with one late-night comedian quipping, "If you're going to be mean to people, maybe don't start with Michelle Obama. Just saying." For Veronica, the humiliation was unbearable. Everywhere she went, people whispered and pointed. Friends she thought were loyal suddenly stopped returning her calls. Even her family seemed distant, unsure of how to support her without getting caught in the crossfire. To make matters worse, Michelle Obama herself addressed the incident during a public appearance later that week. Speaking at a charity gala hosted by a prominent women's organization, she recounted the story with humor and grace. Standing before a crowd of hundreds, she smiled warmly as she spoke. "Sometimes people judge you based on how you look or what you wear," she said, her voice steady and measured. "But true elegance isn't about labels. It's about how we treat each other. Kindness doesn't require a designer tag. It costs nothing, yet it means everything." The audience erupted into applause, cheering as Michelle delivered her message with characteristic poise. Her remarks resonated deeply, not only with those in attendance but also with millions watching online. Clips of her speech were shared widely, further amplifying the narrative that Veronica's behavior was unacceptable. Back at the boutique, business continued to plummet. Regular customers avoided the store, fearing association with its controversial owner. Those brave enough to visit often left feeling uncomfortable, noting the frosty reception they received from both staff and other patrons. Online reviews painted a grim picture, with phrases like toxic environment and elitist nonsense appearing frequently. Veronica tried to put on a brave face, telling herself that this too would pass. But deep down, she knew better. This wasn't just a temporary setback. It was a reckoning. For years, she had built her empire on exclusivity and superiority, dismissing anyone who didn't meet her standards. Now she was paying the price for her arrogance. As the weeks dragged on, Veronica found herself increasingly isolated. Her once thriving boutique became a ghost town, its shelves gathering dust despite the astronomical prices attached to every item. Staff members grew restless, unsure of whether they should continue working for someone whose future seemed uncertain. One evening, as she sat alone in her office, surrounded by unpaid bills and mounting debt, Veronica broke down in tears. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to confront the reality of her situation. She had made a grave mistake, and there was no denying it. But as painful as it was to admit, she also realized that mistakes, even monumental ones, didn't have to define her forever. With trembling hands, Veronica picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't considered calling until now. It was time to take responsibility for her actions, no matter how difficult that might be. Little did she know this decision would set her on a path toward redemption, and perhaps even forgiveness. The phone call Veronica made that evening was one she never thought she'd have to make. It wasn't to her PR team, her lawyers, or even a close friend. It was to Michelle Obama's office. Her heart pounded as she dialed the number, unsure of what to expect. Would they even take her seriously? Would Michelle agree to speak with her after everything that had happened? To Veronica's surprise, Michelle's assistant answered politely and listened intently as Veronica explained why she was calling. She stammered through her apology, her voice cracking with emotion as she admitted how wrong she had been. To her relief, the assistant promised to pass along the message and assured her that Michelle would consider meeting if her schedule allowed. For days, Veronica waited anxiously, replaying the conversation in her mind. Had she sounded sincere enough? Would Michelle see her effort as genuine, or dismiss it as a desperate attempt to save face? The uncertainty gnawed at her, but she knew she had done all she could. Finally, the response came. Michelle had agreed to meet privately for coffee at a quiet cafe near her home. When Veronica received the confirmation, she felt a mix of relief and dread. On one hand, this was her chance to make amends. On the other, she dreaded facing the woman she had so deeply insulted. The day of the meeting arrived, and Veronica prepared meticulously. She chose an outfit that was understated yet elegant, a black blazer paired with tailored trousers, and carried a bouquet of fresh flowers as a gesture of goodwill. Arriving early, she sat nervously at a corner table, rehearsing what she wanted to say over and over again in her head. When Michelle walked into the cafe, Veronica immediately stood up, her nerves threatening to overwhelm her. But Michelle greeted her warmly, extending her hand with a smile that put Veronica at ease almost instantly. "Thank you for coming," Veronica began, her voice trembling slightly. "I can't tell you how sorry I am for what happened. I was wrong to judge you the way I did, and I regret every word I said." Michelle nodded, her expression calm and understanding. "It takes courage to admit when you're wrong," she replied gently. "But more importantly, it takes action to make things right. Tell me, what have you learned from this experience?" Veronica hesitated, taken aback by the directness of the question. For a moment, she struggled to find the right words. Then, drawing a deep breath, she spoke from the heart. "I've realized that my obsession with appearances blinded me to what truly matters," she confessed. "I built my business around exclusivity, thinking it would bring me success and respect. But instead, it made me arrogant and disconnected from the people around me. I hurt someone who didn't deserve it, all because I judged them based on how they looked. That's not who I want to be." Michelle listened patiently, her gaze steady and compassionate. When Veronica finished speaking, she leaned forward slightly, her tone thoughtful but firm. "We all make mistakes," Michelle said. "What defines us isn't the error itself, but what we do afterward. You have the power to turn this moment into something meaningful. Use it to grow, not just as a business owner, but as a person." Her words struck a chord deep within Veronica. For the first time since the incident, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe this wasn't the end of her story. It could be the beginning of a new chapter. Over the next hour, the two women talked openly about the incident and its aftermath. Michelle shared insights from her own experiences, emphasizing the importance of empathy, humility, and resilience. She encouraged Veronica to view this challenge as an opportunity to redefine her values and priorities. By the time they parted ways, Veronica felt lighter, as though a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Michelle's kindness and wisdom had left an indelible mark on her, inspiring her to take concrete steps toward change. A new direction. Determined to prove her sincerity, Veronica threw herself into transforming both her business and her mindset. She started by issuing a heartfelt public apology, not just for the sake of damage control, but because she truly meant it. In a video posted to her boutique's social media accounts, she acknowledged her mistakes and vowed to create a more inclusive and welcoming environment for all customers. "We're more than just a store," she said in the video. "We're a community, and everyone deserves to feel valued and respected here." Next, she implemented changes within the boutique itself. Gone were the intimidating displays designed to intimidate rather than invite. In their place, she introduced cozy seating areas where visitors could relax and browse without pressure. She also trained her staff to prioritize kindness and inclusivity, ensuring that no customer ever felt unwelcome again. But Veronica didn't stop there. Inspired by Michelle's advice, she decided to use her platform to give back to the community. She launched a series of workshops aimed at underprivileged youth, teaching them about fashion design, entrepreneurship, and leadership. These events were free and open to anyone interested in pursuing a career in the industry. At first, skepticism lingered among attendees and critics alike. Many wondered whether Veronica's efforts were genuine or merely a publicity stunt. But as weeks turned into months, her commitment became undeniable. She poured her energy into mentoring young designers, helping them showcase their work and connect with industry professionals. One such participant was a teenage girl named Jasmine, whose sketches caught Veronica's eye during a workshop. Recognizing her talent, Veronica offered to sponsor Jasmine's education at a prestigious design school. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Jasmine later credited Veronica with changing the course of her life. As these initiatives gained traction, public perception of Veronica began to shift. While some remained critical of her past behavior, others praised her for taking meaningful action to make amends. Slowly but surely, her boutique started attracting a new kind of clientele. People who appreciated not only the quality of her products but also the values she now represented. Facing the critics, despite her progress, Veronica still faced challenges. Some critics refused to forgive her, arguing that her apology came too late and only after her reputation had suffered irreparable damage. Others accused her of exploiting her newfound woke image to win back customers. These criticisms weighed heavily on Veronica, reminding her daily of the consequences of her actions. Yet instead of retreating into defensiveness, she chose to address them head-on. During interviews and public appearances, she openly acknowledged the validity of some concerns while reaffirming her commitment to growth and accountability. "I'm not perfect," she admitted during a panel discussion on ethics in fashion. "I've made mistakes and I'll probably make more in the future, but I'm trying. Every day I'm learning to be better, not just for myself but for the people around me." Her honesty resonated with many, earning her newfound respect. From unlikely quarters, even some of her harshest detractors softened their stance, recognizing that true redemption is rarely achieved overnight. A turning point. One particularly memorable moment came when Michelle Obama publicly acknowledged Veronica's transformation. Speaking at a charity event months after their private meeting, Michelle praised Veronica for her willingness to learn and adapt. She could have chosen to ignore the backlash and move on, Michelle told the audience. Instead, she took responsibility for her actions and used them as a catalyst for positive change. "That takes courage, and I admire her for it." The room erupted into applause, and Veronica, who was seated in the audience, felt tears welling up in her eyes. For so long she had feared that her mistake would define her forever. Now, thanks to Michelle's support and her own determination, she was beginning to see herself in a new light. As the evening drew to a close, Michelle approached, Veronica personally pulling her aside for a brief conversation. "You're doing great work," Michelle said with a warm smile. "Keep going. You're making a difference." Those simple words meant the world to Veronica. They reminded her that redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building a future worth fighting for. With renewed purpose, Veronica returned to her boutique, ready to continue the journey she had started. She knew the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but for the first time in years, she felt hopeful. And perhaps most importantly, she finally understood that true luxury wasn't found in designer labels or exorbitant price tags. It was found in kindness, humility, and the courage to change. The months following Veronica's meeting with Michelle Obama marked a turning point, not just for her boutique, but for her entire life. What had once been a symbol of exclusivity and elitism was slowly transforming into something far more meaningful. Veronica's journey wasn't easy. It required constant effort, self-reflection, and a willingness to embrace vulnerability. But with each passing day, she grew closer to the person she wanted to become. One of the first major changes Veronica implemented was hosting monthly workshops at her boutique. These events were designed to inspire creativity and inclusivity, bringing together aspiring designers, young entrepreneurs, and anyone curious about fashion. The workshops weren't limited to high-profile attendees or wealthy clients. Veronica made sure they were free and accessible to people from all walks of life. At first, turnout was modest. Many doubted Veronica's intentions, assuming her efforts were nothing more than a PR stunt. But as word spread about the quality of the workshops and the genuine care behind them, attendance began to grow. Participants came from diverse backgrounds, some with no prior experience in fashion and others hoping to turn their passion into a career. One workshop participant who stood out was Jasmine, a 17-year-old girl from Brooklyn. Jasmine had always dreamed of becoming a fashion designer, but lacked the resources to pursue her ambitions. When she heard about Veronica's initiative, she decided to attend on a whim, clutching a sketchbook filled with rough drawings of dresses and accessories. During the session, Veronica noticed Jasmine's sketches immediately. There was raw talent in her work, an unpolished brilliance that reminded Veronica of herself when she was younger. After the workshop ended, Veronica approached Jasmine and asked if she'd like feedback on her designs. Jasmine nodded shyly, handing over her sketchbook with trembling hands. Veronica spent hours reviewing Jasmine's work, offering constructive criticism while praising her unique vision. By the end of their conversation, she had an idea. "You have real potential," Veronica told Jasmine. "I'd like to sponsor your education at Parsons School of Design. If you're willing to put in the work, I'll cover your tuition." Jasmine burst into tears, overwhelmed by the generosity of the offer. For years, she had believed her dreams were out of reach due to financial constraints. Now, thanks to Veronica, those dreams suddenly felt attainable. This moment became a cornerstone of Veronica's transformation. Helping Jasmine reignited her passion for fashion, not as a tool for exclusivity, but as a means of empowerment. She realized that true luxury wasn't about selling expensive items to the elite. It was about creating opportunities for others to shine. Building bridges, as Veronica continued her outreach efforts, she also worked to rebuild relationships within her community. She reached out to local organizations focused on women's rights, education, and economic equality, offering her boutique as a venue for fundraising events and charity drives. These collaborations not only helped raise money for important causes, but also allowed Veronica to connect with people she might otherwise never have met. One such event was a gala hosted by a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting survivors of domestic violence. Veronica donated proceeds from a special collection of scarves to the cause, using the occasion to share her own story of growth and redemption. Standing on stage before a crowd of supporters, she spoke candidly about the mistakes she had made and the lessons she had learned along the way. "I used to think success was about keeping people out," she admitted. "But now I know that true success comes from letting people in, from creating spaces where everyone feels welcome and valued. That's the kind of legacy I want to leave behind." Her speech earned a standing ovation, solidifying her reputation as someone committed to making a difference. It also opened doors to new partnerships and friendships, further expanding her network beyond the confines of Manhattan's elite circles. Facing old ghosts. Despite her progress, Veronica occasionally found herself haunted by reminders of her past. Some former acquaintances still treated her with suspicion, questioning whether her transformation was authentic. Others refused to forgive her entirely, citing the harm her behavior had caused. One particularly difficult encounter occurred during a charity luncheon attended by several high-profile figures, including Michelle Obama. As Veronica mingled with guests, she spotted Rachel, a former friend who had distanced herself after the scandal. Their eyes met briefly, and Rachel turned away without acknowledging her. Later that evening, Veronica approached Rachel cautiously, extending a polite greeting. "It's been a while," she said softly. "How are you?" Rachel hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm fine," she replied curtly. "Look, Veronica, I don't mean to be rude, but what happened, it left a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not sure I can trust you the way I used to." Veronica nodded, understanding the weight of Rachel's words. "I get it," she said. "I hurt people, and I understand why you feel the way you do. All I can do is keep trying to make things right. If you ever want to talk, or even yell at me, I'm here." To her surprise, Rachel softened slightly. "I appreciate that," she said. "Maybe someday we can start fresh, but it'll take time." Though the conversation didn't resolve everything, it gave Veronica hope. Healing old wounds wouldn't happen overnight, but every step forward mattered. A new kind of wealth. As the year drew to a close, Veronica reflected on how much her life had changed since that fateful day in her boutique. Her business was thriving again, but in ways she never expected. Sales were steady, fueled not by snobbery or exclusivity, but by a growing reputation for kindness and inclusivity. Customers praised the welcoming atmosphere of the boutique, often mentioning how different it felt compared to other luxury stores. More importantly, Veronica herself had undergone a profound transformation. She no longer measured success by revenue or status symbols. Instead, she found fulfillment in helping others achieve their dreams. Whether mentoring young designers like Jasmine or supporting charitable causes, she discovered joy in giving back. To the world around her, Michelle Obama remained a guiding light throughout this journey. Though their interactions were rare, Michelle occasionally checked in, offering words of encouragement and advice. During one such call, Veronica expressed her gratitude for the role Michelle had played in her redemption. "You didn't need me to change," Michelle said kindly. "You did that yourself. I just reminded you of the power you already had, to choose kindness over judgment, humility over arrogance." Veronica smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. She knew she would always carry the scars of her past mistakes, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they served as reminders of how far she had come and how much farther she could go. Looking ahead. By the time the holiday season arrived, Veronica's boutique had become a hub of creativity and connection. Families gathered for festive workshops. Children marveled at window displays featuring handmade ornaments, and customers exchanged stories over cups of hot cocoa served in the store's cozy lounge area. For Veronica, these moments were priceless. They represented everything she had fought for: a space where people could come together, celebrate individuality, and find beauty in shared experiences. As she stood in the doorway of her boutique on Christmas Eve, watching laughter fill the room, Veronica felt a surge of pride. This wasn't just a store anymore, it was a testament to the power of second chances, and though challenges undoubtedly lay ahead, she faced them with confidence, knowing she had built something truly extraordinary. In the end, Veronica's story wasn't just about redemption, it was about reinvention. She had taken a mistake that could have destroyed her and turned it into an opportunity to create lasting change. And in doing so, she proved that even the most unlikely journeys can lead to unexpected grace. As the years passed, Veronica's boutique became more than just a store. It evolved into a symbol of transformation and resilience. What had once been known for its exclusivity was now celebrated for its inclusivity. Customers who walked through its doors weren't greeted with cold stares or judgmental glances. Instead, they were welcomed with warmth and respect. The boutique's name, Veronica's Luxe Emporium, remained unchanged, but its meaning had shifted entirely. It no longer represented elitism or arrogance. Instead, it stood for empowerment, creativity, and community. One of the most remarkable aspects of this new chapter in Veronica's life was the way she inspired others to embrace change. Her story spread far beyond New York City, reaching audiences across the globe. Journalists wrote articles about her journey from redemption to reinvention, while motivational speakers cited her as an example of how mistakes could lead to growth. Even Michelle Obama mentioned Veronica during a keynote speech at a global leadership summit, praising her for turning adversity into opportunity. "Sometimes the hardest lessons come from our biggest mistakes," Michelle said, addressing a packed auditorium. "But what matters isn't where we fall, it's how we rise." Veronica taught us that kindness is the ultimate luxury, and humility is the greatest strength. The audience erupted into applause, many nodding in agreement. For millions watching online, Veronica's story served as a reminder that no one is beyond redemption, if they are willing to put in the work. Celebrating success, to mark the 5th anniversary of her transformation, Veronica organized a special event at her boutique, titled From Threads to Triumph. The evening brought together designers, entrepreneurs, and community leaders to celebrate the power of second chances. The highlight of the event was a fashion show featuring collections created by young designers Veronica had mentored over the years, including Jasmine, whose career had skyrocketed since receiving Veronica's support. Jasmine opened the show with a stunning collection inspired by her childhood in Brooklyn. Each piece told a story of struggle, hope, and triumph, earning thunderous applause from the audience. As Jasmine took her final bow, tears streamed down her face as she hugged Veronica tightly. "I wouldn't be here without you," Jasmine whispered. "Thank you for believing in me when no one else did." Veronica smiled, feeling a surge of pride. Watching Jasmine succeed was one of the greatest rewards of her journey. It reinforced her belief that true success wasn't measured by personal achievements but by the impact one had on others. Later that evening, Veronica took the stage to deliver a heartfelt speech. Dressed in a simple yet elegant gown designed by Jasmine, she began by thanking everyone who had supported her along the way, from her staff and customers to Michelle Obama and countless strangers who had offered words of encouragement during her darkest days. "When I first started this journey, I didn't know if I'd make it through," Veronica admitted, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I was scared, ashamed, and unsure of who I was becoming. But every step forward taught me something new, not just about business, but about myself. I learned that failure doesn't define us unless we let it. And I learned that kindness has the power to heal wounds we didn't even realize we had." Her words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom rose to their feet in a standing ovation. Cameras flashed as reporters captured the moment, eager to share Veronica's message with the world. A ripple effect. What made Veronica's transformation so impactful was the ripple effect it created. Her efforts to create a more inclusive and compassionate environment inspired other businesses to follow suit. High-end retailers began hosting workshops and mentorship programs similar to hers, while smaller boutiques adopted her philosophy of prioritizing kindness over profit. Even within her own industry, Veronica became a respected figure. Designers sought her advice on fostering diversity in their teams, while trade organizations invited her to speak at conferences about ethical practices in fashion. Her influence extended beyond retail, touching lives in ways she never imagined. One particularly touching example came from a young man named Marcus, who reached out to Veronica after reading about her story online. Growing up in foster care, Marcus had always dreamed of starting his own clothing line but lacked the resources and confidence to pursue it. After attending one of Veronica's workshops, he found the courage to take the first step. With her guidance, he launched a sustainable streetwear brand that quickly gained traction among eco-conscious consumers. Years later, Marcus returned to the boutique to thank Veronica personally. "You showed me that my past doesn't determine my future," he told her. "Because of you, I'm living proof that dreams can come true, even when life tries to tell you otherwise." I'll concur. Facing imperfection. Despite her successes, Veronica remained acutely aware of her imperfections. She knew she would never fully escape the shadow of her past actions, nor did she want to. Those memories served as constant reminders of how far she had come and how much farther she still had to go. Occasionally, old critics resurfaced, questioning whether her transformation was genuine or simply a calculated move to rebuild her reputation. While these comments stung, Veronica chose not to dwell on them. Instead, she focused on continuing to live her values, knowing that actions spoke louder than words. She also embraced moments of vulnerability, using them as opportunities to connect with others. During a panel discussion on ethics in fashion, Veronica openly addressed lingering doubts about her authenticity. "I won't pretend I've got everything figured out," she said candidly. "I'll probably mess up again in the future, and that's okay. Growth isn't about being perfect, it's about being better." If I can inspire even one person to try harder, then all of this has been worth it. Her honesty earned her widespread admiration, further cementing her status as a role model for resilience and self-improvement. A lasting impact. By the time Veronica retired from running the boutique, a decision she made in her late 60s, her legacy was firmly established. The boutique itself continued to thrive under new ownership, guided by the principles Veronica had instilled. Meanwhile, she dedicated her retirement to mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs and advocating for causes close to her heart, such as education reform and environmental sustainability. Looking back on her life, Veronica felt immense gratitude, not just for the successes she had achieved, but for the challenges that had shaped her. She often reflected on the day she met Michelle Obama, remembering how those few minutes had changed the course of her life forever. "If I hadn't made that mistake, I might never have realized what truly mattered," Veronica once said during an interview. Mistakes aren't the end, they're the beginning. They force us to confront who we are and decide who we want to become. Her story became a beacon of hope for anyone struggling to overcome their own setbacks. Whether it was a student failing an exam, a parent losing a job, or a business owner facing bankruptcy, people drew inspiration from Veronica's ability to turn adversity into opportunity. The final lesson. In her final years, Veronica distilled her experiences into a single, powerful lesson. True luxury isn't about what you wear or how much money you have. It's about how you treat others and the difference you make in their lives. This philosophy guided her until the very end, ensuring that her legacy would endure long after she was gone. Today, her boutique stands as a testament to the idea that second chances are possible, and that kindness, above all else, is the greatest gift we can give. And so, Veronica's story came full circle. From a woman defined by her arrogance to one celebrated for her compassion, she proved that redemption wasn't just a possibility, it was a choice to grow, to learn, and to leave the world better than she found it. In the end, Veronica Hartman wasn't remembered as the shop owner who insulted Michelle Obama. She was remembered as the woman who dared to change, and in doing so, changed countless lives along the way.